Hello, and welcome to our section on mechanics. Mechanics are defined as the collective term for devices or techniques that help to secure materials and create stability in a floral composition. Mechanics are normally concealed, but may be deliberately exposed for artistic effect. When we're talking about mechanics, what we're referring to is that professional set of skills that you put into your toolbox for either competition, or if you become a professional florist, or if you're going to be an ag teacher and needing to teach your students what mechanics they need for competition or preparing them for a career. So let's go ahead and get started in working on 3 different areas of mechanics that we're going to be discussing. The first will be dealing with how to work with floral foam. The second will be dealing with mechanics for securing flowers in a vase or container without foam. And finally, a little refresher on wire and taping. So the first section we'll be discussing is working with floral foam. And with floral foam, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that we properly soak our oasis or floral brick. And you start with a tub of water that's already enhanced with floral nutrients or some kind of floral food, so that that food can continue to feed your flowers and botanicals. Then you'll take a brick, which normally you'll have it on the top, and then you have little holes on the bottom. So you just want to slightly just sort of drop it on the top of your water and let it slowly sink to the bottom without putting in a pressure. What this will do will be to go ahead and bring the water all the way through the block of oasis without leaving any pockets. And you know that it is completely soaked when you change from the colors of the light green, which is our oasis before we soak it, to this darker color once it's totally saturated. We're still waiting for it to finish up, so we're going to go through one other little tip about how to soak. You do not want to push it down into the water thinking it's going to soak faster, because what happens is you create these little dry pockets, which are literally just like having a vase without water. So when you insert your flower stems into the oasis, what happens is it'll hit that dry socket, will not absorb anything, and the flowers will die in a very rapid way. So that is your basics on soaking foam. So once you've finished your foam and it's all soaked, then you need to insert it into your container. So you'll have any container that you need, again, a piece of floral foam that's already been soaked, and then you just insert it into the container. Many times you can go ahead and it will securely sit in there that you do not need to secure it anymore. However, like this one has a little bit of a wobble because the container is a little bigger than the oasis. So we need to secure it in using waterproof tape. And normally in competition, or if you're working at a shop, the clear one is better because you can cover your mechanics. And that's the thing about mechanics. You want to make sure that they're covered, that nobody can see those little secrets on how things are put together. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to use the green one so that you can see how we do it. So what you want to do is just take a little piece and come, and normally I do it in the corner to corner, which is about 1/3 of the way over, so that it will secure it into place, but will not go and fill up too much of the oasis, because the tendency sometimes is to put it so it doesn't move. However, by doing that and putting too much tape, you have no room for your stems to go ahead and be inserted. So then you're seeing that sort of crisscross pattern, and then I'll do it one more time, coming over the top and onto the side, and then wrapping it around again. And you can normally cut this, either tear it off if you don't have scissors, or scissors will give you that cleaner cut. And then to anchor in the actual tape, you want to take and tape around the edge of the container so that you are making sure the tape does not come off. So you're sort of double whammying the security. Because one thing you do not want is the oasis block to fall out if you're on a delivery or if you're at an event, or it went to prom, so that the flowers will not move. So when you look at it, except for all the water coming out, that isn't going anywhere. And that's basically how you would sit and secure an Oasis block into a container. Now the next step, and the final step we're going to discuss with the floral foam, is how to insert your stems of flowers properly. The tendency most of the time is to just go ahead and take a flower and cut it straight and then stick it in. However, Oasis is designed so that if you stick it in straight it will create a hole with a puddle on the bottom and it will not secure it. Oasis has like little arms or tentacles in it that's formulated so that if you cut your stem at an angle and then insert it in, all the little particles will attach and it'll hold it in. So actually the flower will not fall out. So that is how you properly use Oasis floral foam. The second part of our mechanics little mini course here is how to work with a container without floral foam. One of the easiest ways to do it is to take your container, then take your waterproof tape, and again, like I said, normally what you want to use is the clear, but we're going to go ahead for demonstration purposes and use the green and start creating what we call a grid. And that you do by taking little pieces, coming across, clipping it off, starting again, coming across, creating whatever size openings you think is going to work with your composition. And then we'll do that again on a couple of times. So it's sort of like if anybody's pie makers, it's like creating a lattice on the top of an apple pie. But instead, you're creating a grid to be able to hold your flowers. So this would be the top first step. Then you would come over and crisscross it. So you're actually making a grid. And then we'll do it a couple more times. If you do it 4 times, you want to keep the 4. If you do it 5, you do it 5. And try not to make the little tails on the end too long, because you do not want your customer or your judge to be able to see this. However, in competition, it's very good to do something like this if you don't, because you will get added points onto mechanics, because people will know that you know how to do some techniques. So just a little sort of trade secret there. And then we'll put it there. And of course, the tape never wants to work when you need it to work sometimes. So you just have to do it. So that's what you have on the top. And then to secure it around so that the tape does not come undone, which it shouldn't, but you always want to be super, double, triple cautious. It's like if you're building a bridge, you want to make sure everything is not going to move. And so you run it around the edge, go ahead and clip it off, and then you have your grid. So what you go to next, and this is vitally important, you need to add water to your container. When you're in competition, sometimes you get a little nervous and excited and forget to do this, but you'll get docked points for not having a water source for your flower. So then you would take your flowers, we can go ahead and cut one off, and then you start inserting your greens and flowers into the grid so that they will hold up. So that's your first idea for using a container without foam. The second one we have is if you just have a plain vase and you do not have any, for some reason they do not give you any waterproof tape, and you just have this but you have greenery. So what we're going to do is a technique called lacing. So again, you fill your container with water. We want to get those extra points everywhere we can. And you take some greenery. We're going to take leather leaf. Again, always cutting at an angle when you're in a vase, because when it's in the vase at an angle, there's always a point that's down in the vase, but there's still a surface that water can come up. Sometimes if it's a flat surface going straight down, if the water isn't underneath there, it will sort of stop itself. So always an angle is the best one. So you insert one at, say, we'll just say that is 9 o'clock. Then you come over here and you do one insert that is 2 o'clock, and the other one that is 6 o'clock. So if I take it out of the vase, what you're seeing is a start of a little triangle. That's what the top looks like, that's what the bottom. And then you take a couple other pieces, again clipping it at an angle, and then inserting it. It's the best way to do is just spin, coming in and filling in that gap over there, and you're creating another virtual, it's a grid that interlocks the stems, and you just keep twisting it, turning it, and you keep filling the vase in until it's secure, so that the stems right now, as you can see, there's less and less movement by the more greenery. And then you put this here. Now, if you would like to do a couple different types, we also have this Israeli ruscus that again, you can start inserting at an angle. If you can sort of see, you're angling it in so that, as you can tell there, it is standing up on its own because it has tension that's being created. I'm putting this towards me again at another angle that the grid is actually allowing it to do. So then we have another one. And you can fill in as much as you want. You can do babies, but like I said, you're seeing it, it's not moving. So when you actually sit and put your flowers in, what you're doing is you're creating a mechanic that can sit there and hold your flowers into place. We'll take this little guy over here without having, and there you go, it's not going to move. So the more flowers you have, the more interlocking. So this again is your lacing technique. Finally, sometimes you don't have greenery. They're just going to give you a container and some beautiful flowers. So at that point, then what do you do? The final point we're going to do on non-foam mechanics is what I call, or we call, natural flower support. And again, you take your container, fill it with water, and then you take something like a hydrangea. And the hydrangea, because if you look at it, there's so many different tentacles or little branches already part of the hydrangea that will work sort of like your interlocking mechanics like we just did with the lacing. So once you clean off all your greenery so that there's no greenery that goes below the water surface, because anything that's in there will tend to create bacteria, and you don't want that. So we need to get it so it's low enough that it's going to sit flush towards the top of the container, and all of a sudden that hydrangea becomes our grid. So you can sit there and take some carnations and you can insert them into the hydrangea, and the hydrangea will hold it naturally. So that we'll put another one over here, and as you keep adding more flowers, they will go ahead and continue to hold. And then if you want to get something that has a little bit more height, you can go ahead and build something up a little bit more. So that's your natural mechanics. The section of mechanics we're going to talk about today is wire and taping. And I went ahead and moved the camera up a little bit closer so you can follow along a little bit more to see how everything works. So the first thing we're going to do is start with a technique called cross pinning. And we're going to do this both with a carnation and a rose. And we'll start with our carnation right now. So you take your carnation and then you take what we have a 22 gauge wire, and we clip a little end off of it to create like a needle and make a sharper insertion point. And then you take and you insert into the carnation and stringing it all the way through. Then you take another wire, do the exact same thing, take it, and you take it either above or below. You do not want it on the exact same plane. And then you have a cross piercing. Then you take the wires and you pull them down so that they're parallel with the stem. Then you take your floral tape and you want to cover your mechanics. You want to cover your wires, and you pull so that the tape becomes white, and that will allow it to stick to itself. And then you make sure the wires are covered, and you come and you cover it all the way down to the end. What I'm going to do here is we're going to make more of a boutonniere type, so we try to have it cut off, and then we want to cover the stem on the bottom by coming back up, because this will seal the stem, not allowing any air to get in and allowing the carnation to last out of water. So that's the first one. Then we can do the exact same thing with a rose. And this is how people have been doing this for years in this country with roses. But I will also show you a different technique to also wire and tape a rose. You take your needle, again, it's not a needle, but your wire, and you create a needle point, and you insert it into the rose. And this is going to take, it's a little more difficult because the stem is a little thicker. So you add that one. You take another wire, clip the end of the needle as well, and then you cross going down. And again, I say it's a little stiffer because the stem is a little thicker. Then you pull them parallel as well, and then you tape. Now the second technique you could use with roses is called the insertion wiring. And what you do is, again, like I said, you'll see this over and over and over again, just making that little needle point with your wire, and you insert into the rose with the wire being parallel to the actual stem. So this one here is a 22 gauge. Now what we want to do is go and make a little thinner one. So this will be your spine to hold it in place. You take a 24, again, which is a little thinner, come on the opposite side so that it's parallel to the stem again, insert in, and then you use this and you wrap it around the stem so that you hold it in support. Now this technique versus this one, there's a little bit more of advantage here because you're not just hurting the flower as much. This one, if you can really tell, there's already brown spots because the stem is trying to reject the foreign object, which is the wire. And there's a tendency, if you bruise too much, it might sever the head. But overall, this normally works very, very well as long as you do not put the wires on the same plane. It will cut the heads off. But if you want another technique, like I said, the insertion method works well there too. And of course, you need to wire and tape over. The insertion method works also well with Gerber daisies, chrysanthemums, and other soft stems where you take, and again, you just insert parallel to the stem into the flower head, but you do not want to poke through. You do not see, like here, you're seeing the wire. You do not, let me move this way. You do not want to see the wire. You want to make sure that it does not come up. And then you take, and then you tape as well. The next method we're going to be doing is called the wrap around wiring. And this is what is normally done with baby's breath, eucalyptus, leather leaf, and anything that has these radicals or these little branch type parts of the flowers. And you take your wire, and this one here, we're going to use a 24 gauge, and you take it and you go through the stem and you just hook down and you wrap around a few times so that it actually holds it into place. Then with the same concept with the tape, let's go ahead and get a little cleaner. And this is the great stuff about this tape. You can just rip it, you do not have to cut it, as long as it stays clean. And then you just cover the stem. Okay, and the last one that we're going to do is what you normally do. Let's clean a little spot off here. With leaves. And this is what we have with the salal leaf. You can do it with some ruscus. And a lot of these leaves are normally something that's been clipped off and sitting on the floor or sitting on your workbench. And you take, and again, let's go ahead and make a needle out of this so that we do not hurt too much of the cellular tissue. You take next to the vein, you poke underneath the vein and come up on the other side and crossing it across and taking it down, and then taping it. So you sit there and tape around to create more like a faux stem. And then the great thing is, if you want to keep that up, that's fine, but it also gives you the ability to create a bend. So you're creating some movement and a different line. So if you wanted to do that with your carnation, you sort of have that little natural flow going to it. So that's just a few techniques on how to do some wire and some taping that will help you in competition and any kind of fundraising work you might be doing through your program.